Charles, you can turn on your video in the top bottom left-hand corner. What's going on, dude?
Nothing much. I just I got cleared to work out again today, so they canceled our practices obviously, but I tried to go run and I was getting passed by just random girls in the track were passing me up. I was eating their dust. It's pretty painful.
Well, at least you're able to do some have some access to the facilities. I know I'm at home for the week, if not multiple weeks, and I know that my head coach and one or two of the other assistants went into the office today, and they were part of the reason why they wanted to go to the office was to go and use the squash courts. And I just got a text message a little while ago that because Harvard originally had wanted to leave their squash courts open, and now they're like, nope, sorry, no squash. Yeah. Sucks for you.
They've got some public outdoor tracks out here, and then I was at Walmart and bought some home gym stuff today. It isn't great, but I got a little push-up bar, ab roller, and stuff now.
I'm sure that people would be using the track at Harvard and then going into the stadium to run the stadium.
Yep.
Charlie, what's going on, man?
Going on? How you guys doing?
Charles,
living the dream.
We're all just getting by right now, huh? Yeah. Sounds like y'all are having the same conversation I've been having the last 3 days.
Yes, I am of that. I am sure.
Yeah. I mean, Harlem lacrosse is affected. I mean, yes, schools are out, so Harlem lacrosse is out. So we're just all working from home. We're like working from home and like planning for the spring season that we don't know if it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Gotcha.
Just like total helplessness.
I can relate. Charlie, are you in Boston or are you someplace else?
No, I'm in Boston.
Okay, so I didn't remember your email, and so I think I just sent something to like the general info at Harlem Lacrosse. We have a mountain of shit that we want to donate. It is. There's probably a lot of it that's going to be just tossed because everything is used. Yep. But we're going to at whatever point throughout the summer. We were originally going to do it while the team was in Spain in June, but hopefully we can get to it before June. But there's a whole bunch of goalie sticks. There's a whole bunch of equipment. There's old helmets. There's tons of cleats. Obviously, many of them are big, but there's lots of old gloves. I've talked to.
I am your man. Me and my little Subaru Crosscheck will roll on over, and we'll just throw it all in the back. We love that stuff.
Well, whatever.
I've got a whole bunch of the old Stallion helmets in my gear room right now. I've got a few different boys who are running around rocking those. I've got some elbow pads. I've got some gloves. We'll take everything that you guys want to get rid of.
Awesome. Cool. I have more bags, old. So there's lots of people that never picked up or they never brought home their equipment bags, and so I've got tons and tons of those. So it's not all going to be willy nilly. So there's plenty of bags.
We'll take anything. We'll take all the hard goods, all the pads, all the sticks. We'll take bags. I'll take if you got extra apparel floating around, kids love the swag. So we got apparel. I'll take that off your hands.
Just be careful what you wish.
If you've got old goals that you don't want anymore that you're planning to replace, we'll take goals off your hands. And literally anything.
I'll check on that. I know we've got a ton, but I don't know if those are ones that we want to give up just because of all the events that we try to do where the 2 or 3 days a year where we need 18 goals. But certainly the gear is ready to be picked up and brought out. Hello, Jason. Hello, Skylar.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. How are you? Thanks for tuning in.
Hey.
What's going on?
A whole lot of nothing.
So thank you very much, fellas, for signing into this. I figured we'd wait a few minutes to get more people. There was 27 people had wrote in and said that they wanted to be a part of this, and I don't want to wait too long because I'm still cheap and haven't paid to have longer versions of the meetings. So I think I can do 40 minutes. There's no timer on this, but I know generally started at about 7. But considering that it's only that there's 4 of you and some of you I know, Jason, I think you're the only one that I don't know on a personal level. Or maybe we've spoken through DMs, of course, but the other guys I've met in person a number of times. Originally, I had thought if there was actually like 20 plus people, I probably would have just clicked everybody on mute and kind of talked and had people, chat in the little chat that you see on the side here. But because there's 5 of us, it's a little bit easier to kind of just have a conversation. And that's pretty much what I wanted to start doing with these, is start doing them much more regularly. 1, I wanted to do it anyway. 2, I wanted to do it because now we're all sitting at home doing nothing, and we need a little bit of variance in our routines and what we're talking about. But so in addition to whatever it was that you guys had said, one of the things that I will do is, so all of you should be able to see. What do you see right now? My desktop. You just see like in the background, right?
Yep.
So this is all of the stuff that I had received as far as topics to kind of discuss. And so with the 4 of us here, or 5 of us here, it's a little bit easier to go through some of these. And legitimately, like I'm probably, once we're done this, I'm probably going to set up Instagram and do a live and string a stick. But I just wanted to start, this is a first run of doing this, and I wanted to practice it because I would love to try and do this on a more regular basis to have more specific instruction, because I'm also right now recording this whole thing so that I can post it up onto YouTube after the fact. Is there anything that anyone in particular has questions about that they would like to discuss? Because this will be a little bit more of a forum because there's so few of us.
It looks like we lost your Google Sheet page when you full screened it. I'm looking at your background right now, your desktop screensaver.
I see a sand dune and the flume map, and that's about it. There it is.
Yep. There we go.
Okay. All right. So the whole desired topics to discuss. What do we want to talk about?
I guess I'll sort of jump in because I kind of asked kind of a bigger question that might then feed a little more into talking about the specifics of stringing. But my kind of big question is when someone comes to you and says, "Hey, can you string my stick?" What is your decision-making process around how you're going to string that person's stick? How do you decide between, I'm just going to give them a pretty kind of a standard string job versus double inside, weaved inside, grain bag, drop tops? How do you decide that? Is that purely based off of someone coming to you and saying, I want a double inside? Or is that them saying, I want X, Y, and Z, and then you sort of in your head what that should look like?
But first thing that I'm going to ask is, who's it for? If it's for a 9-year-old and they want all sorts of fancy things, it's going to be fancy but simple, and I might not even do some of the fancy things purely for the sake of making sure that it is simple and easy to use. Just about 99 sticks out of 100. The primary thing that I'm trying to make sure that that somebody, whoever's getting the stick, gets out of it is that it's easy to catch and throw with. Whether it comes out early or comes out late, that's a little bit dependent upon who it is, what position they are, their skill level, and then whether I'm doing anything kind of fancy by doing stringing to the inside, or doing any kind of crazy top strings, that's more that I go down those roads depending upon the answers to the question of who's this for, what position do they play, how old are they, how long have they played for, what stick that they already have. Usually, if I can take a look at something that someone's already been using, it's most of the time, especially with younger kids and youth players, it's typically, I hesitate to say garbage, but a lot of the time it's garbage. So doing something that's extremely simple and easy to use is typically mind-blowing for players like that, because all of a sudden it's dramatically and immediately easier for them to use it, and their experience automatically is like, oh my God, this is so much more fun because I don't have to think so much about what I'm trying to do. Once players get a little bit older, high school and club age, that's when depending upon position and skill level, you can start to get more creative with some of the stuff that you can do, because you can string to the inside and still have it be easy to use. And also it depends on the head. For a kid that has a kinetic or the new Nike Vapor, which is extremely, I think the old original clutch, like the high school clutch. I would never string a high school clutch to the inside because it's just too damn, or even the original Rabel. It's just so high school Rabel. It's so extremely narrow. It would be very difficult to keep it legal because all the plastic is going on. So what head they're using also has something to do with it. So like that's the simple, I know I just talked really quickly, but that's the simple answer. Like it's very dependent upon who it is, who they are, what position they play, where they grew up. But the focus is make it simple and easy to use. And as they get older and possibly more skillful, then you can become more creative. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And like looking at, I think that answers the question, because like you said, especially I think dependent on position and experience, something that tends to have more hold or more whip or require a little more skill to throw with is not going to be a good fit for someone who's younger or less experienced, or for someone who might be looking for something with a little bit less whip.
Well, for me, I'll chime in too, just because I string a lot of heads for people in Texas where their skill level or their ideas aren't necessarily all the greatest, or have any idea of what's really going on for a lot of the kids that I string for. And so, I mean, I think it also depends on your proximity to the person, because there's some kids that know what they want and there's some kids that have no clue. And for me, even if some kids like, hey, get the classic, which I'm sure we've all done it if you string a number of sticks, is I want a high pocket, maximum hold, zero whip. And you look at the kid and you're like, you must eat concrete. Like, it's not like feasible.
That's not a thing.
In most cases. And so for me, I try to string a very, like you said, Lars, simple pocket, something that allows the kid to be able to even look at it and possibly replicate it if he's trying to get into stringing, or something that, is easily adjustable for me until we find out if he is looking for a particular pocket, what works best for him. Double inside I would never do to somebody unless they particularly ask me for it.
Yep.
Because again, it's something, if they was shooting ahead to California, something happens, it's not necessarily going to be as easy for me to get a hold of to retweak it if they decide to unstring it or they try to, whatever they want to do to it. As opposed to someone who's on my high school team where I can say, hey, check out my double inside. If you like it, we can do that to your stick, but we're not going to go down that path unless you actually see the benefits or understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. If you think it's just a normal pocket, then I'm going to give you a normal pocket that you can use and you won't know the difference compared to what a double inside does. There's
a large distinction between kids who know what they're talking about and actually know what they're talking about, and those who think they know what they're talking about and really don't. And that's the kid who wants a super high pocket, maximum hold, no whip whatsoever. Like, you can ask a couple of questions, and generally, like, a couple of simple questions can tell you, okay, this kid has some idea of what he's talking about, or this kid's not an idiot, but doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, part of the reason I ask is because of my work and where I coach. I work for Harlem Lacrosse, so I spend probably half my time stringing the same pattern for middle schoolers who have never played lacrosse before, which is all good, but it's just like very consistent, the same pocket. And then I'm a volunteer assistant at MIT, so I spend the other half of my time stringing sticks for college players who do want something that's a little bit more advanced. So just like kind of like working in those two areas and trying to figure out how to deliver the best pocket possible for those MIT players is kind of what I'm working through.
For
Yeah,
me at least.
If I was, for the most part, if I'm stringing sticks for kids at heart, if you asked me to do a whole bunch of sticks for Harlem Lacrosse, and you just dumped a whole box of various sticks, like all different kinds and however old they are, and it's like all these sticks are going to kids at Harlem Lacrosse, I would just do every single one of them with probably 2 to 3 shooters, mid pocket, something that's going to be easy to use, and also something that for these kids that have never really played before, they're relatively speaking interchangeable.
Yeah.
College kids want a little bit, like something maybe a little bit your unique and identifiable to them. And a lot of times you can get away with giving 2 kids on the team the same thing and just being like, yours, and literally just lie to the college kid and say yours is this, A, B, C, and D, and yours is 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they are generally speaking the exact same thing, but you just tell them that they're special and pat them on the bum and get them going, and they're like, yes. Yeah. That happens more often than I'd care to admit.
So much. The amount of lying I do to that kid that thinks it's almost more just a placebo effect. Like I think something, thank you, JP, appreciate it. I have a kid who comes up to me before every game and has me tighten his bottom string to make sure it's not illegal. I just wiggle it with my teeth and send him on his way. I think I'm pretty lucky. I get to see a pretty wide spectrum. Obviously, my teammates, and then whoever pays for my stringing online. It's either pretty near the top end of kids that want unique sticks and have high levels of skill and like strength and whip and hold and whatnot, versus complete unknowns. Or when I'm back home in Southern California, I'll run camps and whatnot, and I'm stringing for like brand new 8-year-olds. So I think it's really important to kind of more or less what Lars said, like your proximity to the person. I usually, if it's online, someone I don't know, I'm going to ask for if they have some kind of video of them playing. That's really helpful. And I ask about age and position. Sometimes I'll ask about like strength level, but like the more you know about their play style is pretty helpful for deciding what you want to do for their stick. And then you asked about like the different sidewall styles. I think I don't really pick those until after I decide about the pocket style, and they're kind of just a means to an end. I mean, typically 9 times out of 10, I'm going to pick double inside or grain bag or whatnot, as I think that's the best way to accomplish what I'm trying to get, but it's not something I'm usually going to go into there predetermining.
I agree with that completely. What style, what general pocket shape you want to go with is much more important than what style you use to get there. And so you can do a lot of very similar pocket styles with different types of sidewalls. And for Jason and Charlie, if you guys don't know JP, who was just talking about it, he's currently a player. Are you a 5th year senior?
Well, I don't even know what we call it because the school's over. But this would be my senior year. I'll be back next year
at Michigan, and is a player on the University of Michigan team.
Oh yeah, I follow him I see all his stuff.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
We traded a couple DMs about double inside, or rather grain bag, and I still haven't worked up the balls to give it a shot yet, but I'm on my way there.
It's I think it's a pretty fun one. It looks pretty neat, and the results are more or less identical to double inside. It puts the knots in the same spots, so either one really does the same job.
And weaved. It's a lot of it is aesthetic. How
I feel like weaved is kind of distinct in my mind because it like the main functional SI variety on the weaved puts the knots in between the holes, so it's kind of a different paradigm of patterns that you can get with.
Well, I mean, and you can still do double inside SIs rather than ones. But you're right.
Yep.
It's all about where you want everything to sit and how flat or not flat you want it to sit. Next, who's got any other questions or anything else that we want to talk about?
I'm curious your guys' thoughts on what the kind of the lacrosse general sale or resale market's going to be like this summer with just a lack of kids playing and whatnot. I feel like sales are going to drop and it's going to be difficult to move items.
Are we talking about sales as in like retail
Like kids
sales?
unloading their gear.
Retail or yourself selling jobs.
Actually, I can speak to that. I actually work at Dick's.
Please.
I work at Dick's Sporting Goods, and I'm a lacrosse guy there, and we're a tier one. We're a tier one store down here in Georgia. So I've actually seen an uptick because right now everyone's coming in and now they're getting their summer stuff ready to go. They've realized that they're right now. It is depressing, but it's a good feeling when they're coming in and saying, okay, I'm kind of writing off spring, but we're getting ready for summer, and they're all getting ready for their travel, and they're all getting ready for their showcases, and they're all coming in, and they're picking up new sticks and they're getting them restrung, off the shelf and everything else. So at least down here in Georgia, sales are at least somewhat on the rise.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. To me, I don't know. I guess I would have thought that with this many seasons being cut, you would think that there'd be more kids and more families out there who are like, all right, well, obviously my gear's not going to be as heavily used this spring. There's no need for me to go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff or try to trade up for stuff. But, if you want the gear, you want the gear, I guess.
I think there's going to be, I think right now people, before the whole pandemic turns into a national nightmare, I think there's going to be people that are going to be going out there because they're probably going to try and make sure that their kids have stuff so that they can go play outside, because thankfully that hasn't been ruled out yet. Even if they put on a travel ban, people still can go outside and enjoy being outside, just not together in big groups. Whether or not summer lacrosse happens is probably yet to be determined, as far as how much like tournaments and summer leagues happen. We'll have a better idea of that probably by the beginning of May, because right now, as far as I understand it, we're still basically doubling the number of confirmed cases in the United States every 2 days. Hopefully, as they keep talking about flattening that curve, it won't get too heavy and our whole healthcare system won't get overloaded. Now, all that bringing it back to gear, I'm still getting people who are asking me to string sticks. My motivation for wanting to do this is very specific to the timing of everything that's going on and all these kids that are going home, who are now home, like college players, high school players, youth players. I want to be able to do this to offer the information and start conversations like this about stringing for kids that just have more time on their hands. And that's my motivation for trying to be able to do this and provide information for people. And obviously also it helps take people's minds off how bad this might get. That's good too. I don't know, like, JP, what do you think? Do you think it's going to get worse? Do you think it's going to get better, like, as far as sales and such?
The whole scenario or just the sales aspect?
Whatever you want to.
Let's stick to the cross. I don't need to give my medical forecast. I can see it actually being, well, what you just said about now, like your reasoning for the doing this kind of conversation and stream. I guess it's a great time to kind of grow the knowledge pool and put content out there for people to consume stuck at home. I've been, my job I thought I had and my job prospects have mostly dried up for the summer because of like economic downturn and not wanting to hire because of like companies not wanting to have new people in the office, and holding internship programs over Skype seems kind of silly to them. So I was hoping to make some sort of side money from lacrosse stuff, and I've been worried about whether or not I can sell that or not. I feel like it's going to be pretty pitiful market. We'll see. I tried selling something today and it didn't go great. Not a lot of bites.
What were you trying to sell?
That's like such the
I tried to
the
throw up ahead online. I liked what Jason had to say. That sounds promising.
Yeah. I mean, we started out talking about it sort of offhandedly, but that's like the crux of the whole situation, right? Nobody knows. Nobody has any idea. So
Yeah.
hopefully we get some light at the end of the tunnel really soon and can start to plan more effectively for recruiting, camps, events, the market, all that kind of stuff.
I can tell you that I have continued to, without fail, continue to get all of the same, like IMLCA college coaches. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that's very specific to the coronavirus and how to stop it and all that stuff, but people are still planning events in May, June, July. So I think a lot of people are going under the assumption that until we get to that time and someone tells you distinctly no, that we're going to plan for it and we're going to do it. And thankfully, this is not like the Black Plague where everybody who gets this virus isn't going to die. Young kids, for most young kids, for most of us that are here right now, like, we're going to get sick. It's going to be like the flu, and we're going to get over it. We're going to develop antibodies, and we're going to get better. So it's just, hopefully it doesn't catch fire and, make things worse. So hopefully by the time we get to the summer, we will have more answers, more ability to test, more ability to, fight it, and regular life with domestic travel and social distancing can.
Right. 7th and 8th grade dance distancing. Well, the wife and I went to Olive Garden the other day, and we had a waitress there. Just thinking about servers, they make pennies on the dollar, and so the waitress was there, and I saw her. She had a tattoo on her forearm, and I asked if she had any kids, and she has 2 young girls, and she was pretty young herself, and we were just having a conversation about how hard it must be for her as a server, because obviously restaurants are dead now. They're closed in Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, whatever it is. And she said, yeah, this morning I had a family come in, spend $100 on her meal, tip her $1 whole on her meal. And so, not that it has anything to do with lacrosse gear, but just the value you hold on certain things is a little bit. I mean, obviously grocery shopping, all that stuff is crazy, and bread's missing, and toilet paper's going crazy, and people are cutting paper towels in half to get, shit paper and all that stuff. So like, it's just like craziness, the value you hold on that. Like, now this person spent an hour and a half with me and my kids. Yeah, I'm going to give them $1, but I'll pay $100 for the meal. It's just like, for me, mentally thinking about how are impacting someone's life directly, just like JP trying to find a way to make something out of, a terrible situation, not to make money to, go on and do anything crazy, but just to be able to support himself and do things that a normal person would want to do regardless. And by using lacrosse gear to be that way, it's just wild. And
to be honest, spending $100 on a meal, how many people did that waitress say were in that party?
I believe she was like a family of 3 or 4.
Even a family of 4 to spend $100 at Olive Garden is not
right. You got apps. And dessert.
Yeah.
Kids meals. I'm thinking about if you had like 2 kids meals, and even then it's even less, right? So like, how much wine did you drink? How much alcohol did you have? But you could tip someone more than $1.
Yeah. All right. What's next? Anything else?
I got a technique question. Unless I know I already asked a question.
I had a question. Is this Charles talking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Charles, I have a question for you.
Oh,
2 things. 1, do you know Eric Crawford? Who's at school in upstate New York?
I don't think so. No.
Because I think he has some of your kids. 2nd thing, Hayden Stalter. I coached him when he was in high school. He's a great friend of mine.
Yeah.
A great kid.
Yeah,
but we can talk about that after. I just want to make sure I said it to you before we got off, so I could.
Hayden's a great kid. Where did you say Eric's at? Where does he coach at?
Who's one in right on the border of Vermont, Massachusetts, and New York?
Yeah, this is my 2nd year with Harlem Lacrosse. So I'm still like getting oriented with all like
they send guys
wider picture of the program and some of like the schools where some of our New York kids have gone to.
Yeah. But yeah, Hayden Salter is really close to me. You should tell me Skylar Saunders, or you run a FaceTime with him. He's really good.
I definitely will. I'll tell him you say what's up. Technique question.
Technique question.
Yeah, how about on those drop tops? I don't know how you. Hey, meeting has been upgraded by the host.
It wasn't by me. Running out of time, we've removed the 40-minute time limit for your group meeting. Love it.
Outstanding.
Gift.
When you're rocking a chenango drop top, top string. How do you like, I know that the purpose is to sort of like alter the shape, basically alter the shape of the scoop and alter the shape of the mesh, but how do you get it to be, again, how do you sort of determine how far you drop it, and how do you get that to be so uniform?
As large
Am I saying that right? Is it chenango? Is it chenango? What's the verdict?
I mean, chenango, I think, is correct. So this is not, I don't have one that is profound that I can see, but this should be kind of a good example that you can tell where it's, I tied this off in only the second hole down, but because of pulling everything else down, it looks like there's a little bit more room up there in those corners. Honestly, I start in the middle, and I'll start with the two, in this case, if there's 6 top string holes, number 3 and number 4, depending upon which way that you go across. And then I'll go out to one side, out to the other, go to one side, go to the other.
Yep.
And even though it looks like everything is pulled down, before I do anything with the sidewalls, or like even before I even tie off where I start the sidewall, all this mesh it's much closer up to the plastic. How much room is here underneath the plastic and the mesh right now? That's created after I have done the sidewalls, pulled everything down, and then pounded the pocket itself. And so like that's kind of the point to point to point process by which I do it. But also, I mean, some of it is practice and having done it for so long. And second is I'm also not gonna, like, I'm very anal and very picky about how it looks. So if it's not even, I'll undo it and redo it until it is even.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking for.
Sorry,
go ahead, JP.
Yeah, if I can give my 2 cents on those semi-drop tops that Lars does. I was really not a fan of that original chenango top that the Syracuse guy started doing, and just because I felt like it was essentially a 9-diamond top string that anchored those 2 middle diamonds that are traditionally locked in, and then it would just pull down pretty abruptly into straight lines in those corners. And so the way Lars does them,
like
obviously
Ryder Garnsey aggressive.
Yeah, that kind of thing. I mean, the guy accused was even worse. He would like skip to the 6th hole or something just with his top string. It was wild. But the way Lars does it, at least, the symmetrical thing is largely because he starts in the middle and he works side to side without doing each side first. But I think Lars's way works really well because, I mean, you can imagine like the shape of a lacrosse head is not a rectangular shape. Like the scoop curves upward, and mesh is essentially a rectangular weave. But Lars's top string, like, it reduces the amount of mesh along those sides and then adds more slack back into the middle of the head where the scoop is curved up higher, the way he does his fold. So coupled with that and starting from the middle, it evens the tensioning pretty well. So it even some of his more pronounced ones that look like chenango style or drop tops are actually, like, they're more similar in the mesh tensioning to a standard 9 or 10 diamond across the top type of thing. So I can't think of many of Lars' 6 that I would even call a drop top string. I think it's just.
I would say there's certainly ones that I would categorize as that one that I just showed you. I would call that dropped, but I wouldn't call that a chenango.
Sure.
Like you guys
like
can see my screen, right?
There are a lot. I guess what I'm looking for is like, I guess kind of one of the things that I'm thinking is like, in some of these, like especially in sticks where you string just to whatever we'll call it holes, like on a 6-hole scoop, we'll call it, you string just between holes 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah. And
between holes like 2 and 3 and between holes 4 and 5, there's a pretty pronounced dip in the string that goes between those holes, and like how you get those so uniform. Yeah. So like on this one, you've got that's
a good one.
You've just got these dropped down to a lower sidewall hole.
You know what? I don't think it's even that many sidewall holes down. Like,
really? Oh, damn.
It's an ultra power, but that's the second sidewall hole. But it looks like that. This is another example of it's all the tension that's being pulled towards the channel here is partially because of pounding and just pulling all the mesh down. I'm still trying to. So this is a little bit more aggressive in this page. This is the fifth sidewall hole, and I'll do this, but I won't really ever do the more of the aggressive Ryder Garnsey, only like on a 6-hole scoop, only tying off the top string to 3 and 4. It's mainly because like I would do that for a very, very specific player who is very skilled. I put way too much time and wrote way too long of an email to what I can only imagine. I looked him up. He's a 2024. I don't know what that is, a freshman in high school, who asked me very specifically he didn't say that he would give me a hit. He said, hey, can you give me an ultra power and string it up like Nick Deagle so I can shoot hard? I'm an 8th grader. I can hit 90 on the radar gun. And I want to see what you can do in an ultra power that you give me to help see if it'll increase my shot speed. And I wrote way too much, poking a lot of holes in this guy's bubble. And like a lot of it, like what I said about Nick Deagle's stick is, one, that you can't throw a pass with his ever. And two, but more specifically to talk about this one, the Under Armour one right in front of us, and like what Ryder Garnsey used is like Ryder Garnsey is not a high velocity shooter, but he is in like the top 0.1% of skilled offensive players who have the ability to use a stick like that and execute at really, really high levels. Because you're only doing the chenango, it's very narrow. It's just the channel is just so much more pronounced, and it's just you have to be. I like using the what do you call it, the metaphor, like walking on the edge of a knife. If you're walking on like the edge of a knife, anything other than being truly perfect you're screwed. And then you make a little adjustments, you make something a little bit easier to use. It's like walking on a balance beam. Like you got to have pretty good balance, but as long as you stay on the balance beam, then you're okay. And then the other thing, as far as like, basically the kind of sticks, the equivalent of this metaphor in lacrosse sticks that I'd want to try and give most players, especially kids who are younger, is essentially walking on a sidewalk. That there's enough channel that the ball is only going to come out of the channel, but it's so easy to use that like I might give that same pocket to a college kid as I would to a 3rd grader who is 1 month into his first set of clinics in his town, a year or two before he starts actually playing on a team. Because you want it to be something that's that easy to use. And there are people that are like, oh, I want the chenango, I want all this super like aggressive stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you like all that stuff because it's sexy, but people don't understand how much more difficult it is to use things like that. Like Doc Aiken is a kid who is a great example of a kid who is extremely skilled. And when I went down to Virginia in the fall, I did a stick for him that was different than everybody else's. So I had, my 8 or 9, like some of these Evo 5s behind me are ones that are left over that I can, well, not now, but will probably next fall send back down to UVA. And while I was down there, I took time with him where I basically said, he had to go to class. So I took his stick and basically replicated it with something that would be more consistent, because this is a kid who just took a stick that was very average and just put in 2 shooters and pulled them extremely tight and figured out how to use it, thus dramatically increasing his ability, his skill, because he had to use something that sucked. And all of a sudden he uses something that is really easy to throw with, just the ball comes out really late. It makes his job easier because he's already raised his skill level so that he can use something that's very tough to use. Where kids are like, oh, I want to use something that Docs uses. I'm like, no, I refuse. I will not do that. and kids are like, oh, they get all pouty. And I'm just like, I'm not going to, like, that's one of those cases where I won't lie because, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, I don't know, but I'd rather kind of try to educate the kid to be like, hey, you want to get there? That's fine. It's going to be a long time. You're 14 and you weigh 97 pounds. You know, you are less than double what, you know, double a human that this person you're trying to emulate right now. You just need something that throws. And so far, most of the time I've been right. And if I'm wrong, I haven't heard anything back about it. But that's, I don't know, sorry, big long diatribe about chenangos going off on tangents. But it's all about like this stick. I was the one that this Under Armour, like I was really happy with this one. And it looks like it would probably not be as easy to use. But for things like this, I have took a 4x8 piece of like 3/4 inch plywood, cut it in half, bolted it together, and leaned it up against a tree in my backyard. So for any stick that I'm not absolutely positive I know exactly how it's going to perform, I will go outside and try it out. And like even with this, I was pleasantly surprised that two shooters and a stacked nylon didn't give me more than I expected as far as hold and ability to have the ball come out easy. And you can still tighten at the bottom string and have that greatly affect how early or how late the ball comes out. So, yeah, chenangos. Sorry.
It's all good.
What do you think someone like Garnsey is getting out of that chenango style knife's edge? That obviously there's a lot of other very skilled players that wouldn't even want the knife's edge pocket. Like some of the a lot of Canadians by choice would go with, you know, not
opposite end of the spectrum,
like the full country road wide of a
country
degree
road.
Of
Well, and the thing that okay, what does Ryder Garnsey get out of that? Well, if I mean, JP, you've played against him, right?
a couple times.
So you saw like some of what Ryder does is not something that you can, certainly not something a college coach is going to try and teach. I remember seeing him as a rising junior playing at Harvard. And at this point, it has to be like 7 or 8 years ago. I think I was coaching at Endicott at the time in like 2014, maybe fall of 2013. It was a tournament at Harvard, and because he was a local, he's a Massachusetts guy, and is he a Massachusetts guy? I know he did a PG year at Phillips Academy. He's playing for like the Clams, and he was doing the stuff that he was doing in college back in high school. Only in high school he was, you know, a small version of a huge fish in a tiny pond, and he was clowning people like you wouldn't believe. And so
he has some of the strongest wrists I could think of, but not just like in terms of snap. It's almost like they're disconnected from his arms, and he can do whatever he wants with the ball from way far away.
So he obviously at some point in his progression had a coach that was like, yeah, do whatever you want, or at least he's like, as long as you can pull it off. And I'm sure, I actually have not talked to Coach Byrne about this, about him specifically. But I will now that we've had this conversation. I'll bet there were plenty of times where his coaches were extremely frustrated with the stuff that he did. But, you know, at the end of the day, he'd still probably go like 2-2, 3-2, 2-3. And like, because of it's just what he did was so unconventional at times that he would get, you know, it only has to work a couple of times to get a couple of points. You know, like Matt Kavanaugh was a different kind of player. He was just, you know, a freak athlete, but also just a much more conventional skill-wise player. And so what to kind of go along with what you said about like Ryder wanted it, like in order for Ryder to do all these very fancy, dramatic, unfundamental things that he would do, he needed all of that hold. And one of the times I went out, you know how Notre Dame does all those high school coaches clinics and such? They do it typically in February at the very beginning of the season. They'll do like Friday night and Saturday morning, and they'll do like all day Saturday, practice Saturday night, practice Sunday morning. but there's all these coaches clinics during the day on Saturday. I flew out there in order to put up a table and try and sell my stringing stuff to all these high school coaches that are there. We watched the practice, and I got a chance to speak to him, to Ryder, because I was just, obviously I knew what his sticks looked like. I went along to the sideline, I picked his stick up, and I started bouncing a ball on the ground with it. The ball comes out, but you can tell if the ball rides up here, right? If he drops his hands a little bit, and that ball sits under there, and he kind of power cradles once or twice, the ball's not going anywhere until he wants it to. That's a great way to use the reference that I was mentioning earlier about Canadian players, because typically so many of them want, like you said, the country road, like the absolute easiest thing. That's like if you see, I don't know how well you can see this. This is an Evo 4, not for a Canadian, but like this, it's very legal depth-wise. I don't know if I can. This right here is still like it's quite legal, but it's still they want, many of the Canadians that I've seen when I was working in the NLL, they wanted things that were even shallower than that. So many of them are there's a lot of professional indoor men's players that could straight up go take a woman's stick, right now a college legal women's stick, and go play with it and keep the ball under duress in professional indoor games. And it's because ball retention and stick protection are learned, practicable, developable skills that for 99.9% of all American-born outdoor players, they've never reached that level of skill as far as holding onto the ball because they've never had to. Part of the reason why so many of the Native Americans, like the Thompson brothers, were so successful in the college game, because you watch those games where it's what's the name of that defenseman at Notre Dame, like those epic battles that
Landis.
Matt Landis, like the epic battles that Landis would be just position, like tomahawk, and Lyle would just be leaning against him. One, I don't think Lyle Thompson ever got enough credit for being probably the best athlete in college lacrosse the last couple of years that he played. But it's safe to say that anything that's happening to him on an outdoor field when he was playing at Albany has happened 10 times worse when he was playing on the res. So nothing, it's just he's used to it. And so he knows how to play being under pressure and being doubled and being tripled, because he has to be able to do that stuff at a higher level in a much smaller space when he's playing indoors in the summer and in the fall. And you can still see how well he's doing. I don't know if the Bayhawks have signed him to stay in the MLO this summer. We'll see how that plays out. Certainly, as we were talking about before, we'll see how any of the professional lacrosse plays out. I know that the Cannons have already organized, and I know I've got a bunch of emails about my flights this summer, but we'll see how it works. But Canadians in general want things that are, at least for indoor, much, 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 much easier to play with than most other players, just because their level of skill is typically higher, at least for offensive guys.
So with my pockets, I'm sure, you might have noticed, I don't experiment nearly as much with my top strings as you do. And I think you said in there you would go for something like that Garnsey style. I think you mentioned just the hold aspect, and it's pretty dramatic, and it works for him because of his just skill and his release are that unique that he can pull it off with that crazy amount of hold, and it's got that knife's edge functionality. But you would say that generally you aim for those more dramatic arch top strings, to accentuate the hold and whip of a stick, or the exaggerated features like that, the pocket shape. I don't play around with the top string nearly as much. I'm curious what your main goal is when you pull the top string lower.
The Under Armour stick that's on your screen is a little bit more aggressive of an example than I typically use. Some of the something like this. Let's see how far. That's a little far down too.
Well, but let's just go with that Under Armour one. What was your goal there with the very aggressive, 4th or 5th hole top string?
This one was this one was very specific to a player. You know, somebody ordered this, or somebody sent me this head and filled out the order form and wanted something like this. I'll bring it down that much further. Generally, I've found that helps for setting up pockets that are higher, like your mid-high, high pockets, because you could still get some that are extremely high that are still easy to throw with. Here's a great example. Now this is 910 diamond rhombus mesh dynasty. So this is a good example because you see, I know I'm sorry about the background, but I only brought it down to what looks like the third hole, but it doesn't, not going down too much further, it allows for a channel. Like, I think too many kids ask for too aggressive of a channel. And they're like, oh, I'm trying to get this great channel. Like, I haven't figured out how to get a channel. And I'm like, figure out how to get a shape that works for you, and a channel will figure itself out. I never worry about channel. I worry about shape. And so what I've said is, like, you know, sidewalls dictate shape, shape dictates release. And if I am pulling down, in this case, to the third hole, it just allows me to use for the X where I'm doubling up a bunch here in the middle of the head. It just allows for, I didn't go too far down, so the channel is not too aggressive. So the channel is enough that it holds the ball where I want it to and keeps the shape the way that I want it to, but it's not so aggressive that it's difficult to use. And this specifically, I think this one was for
defenseman.
one of my LSM or defensemen for the Cannons this past summer.
So it seems like your some of these tops help with forming kind of a more immediate channel without having to pull so aggressively for a higher pocket.
Yes.
You're not having to yank at the sidewalls as much up high in the head and then bunch as aggressively to force the higher pocket up there.
I'm bunching right around here in the middle next to this V of a strut for the sake of just trying to get have the mesh open up higher. So that's because that's where I want the ball to sit for a defenseman. But you can see that I'm not yanking too far down. There's not too much tension diagonally coming from where the top strings are connected down to these first couple of holes that I weave to the inside. Does that answer your question?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Does anybody else have any questions about that while we're on the topic?
One thing I found, I have a whole bunch of like really soft mesh that we got donated at one point, and it's I can't remember what company it is. We just got donated it in bulk. And one thing I found is that stringing with those drop sidewalls a little bit, it kind of helps with what you were just saying about creating it helps kind of retain some tension at the top without bagging out super high, which you don't want in a beginner stick, but it kind of creates like a pretty solid amount of channel without the channel being too aggressive. Because the first few times I strung with it, I found that it was either bagging out way too much up top, or I was having to put so much channel into it that I was faced with a similar problem. So those drop tops kind of help create the channel without it like building up to an insane amount of lip too quickly.
JP, I'll tell you something that I do is string kings. The tipped string king sidewall strings are generally just a little bit too short for my liking. So here's a great example of like a mid-low Evo 4 and part of the reason why I like the way this looks better. In this case, I think I tied off the top string on the third hole down in the sidewall of the plastic. Effectively, I would kind of categorize this as a drop top string because the mesh is not pulled all the way up and like tied off. So like it hasn't tied the mesh to the plastic. But effectively, this isn't. If I did if this string was a little bit longer, I could have done a 6-hole top string, and I don't think it would have it wouldn't really, for this stick specifically, it wouldn't really change how it performs or the shape because I'm really setting the pocket down at the bottom. So that's why where the pocket shape is. So some of it is aesthetic and some of it is just String King strings are too short. It's something that I have told and commend STX for doing because the STX string kits are, the strings might only be like 4 to 6 inches longer, but that's just enough to do a 6-hole top string and double loop on the sides. Like right here, this is a perfect example. I don't know if you can kind of see this. I'd have more string if I started in the first hole, but this is a 6-hole top string in a String King string, and I was only able to tie one knot because I didn't have enough time, I only wrapped around the plastic once, and I only tied a single knot rather than a double because I just didn't have enough string. So sometimes it's as simple as, why do I do before? That's what it was. This is an example. This string kit is one of the, this looks like 4S or maybe dry mesh light, but I can tell you like this, I really like the strings that came in the kits for the rocket mesh string kits because their sidewall was a little bit thinner and it was long enough. I think you can tell because I cut the ends off of these in this case. You can see I cut and burned the end there, but I just decided to do that kind of top string anyway, because I just like how it looks.
That makes a lot of sense. Typically, I'm going to go with a 6 hitch in the first or second hole, and I find those String King strings are just about the perfect length to be able to start in the middle and have just enough to tie off on the left and right. But obviously, if you're dropping even another hole down or two, that would definitely become a problem, the string length.
Cool. Awesome. So it's 8. I want to try and do a live here in a little bit, but before we go, does anybody have any last questions in particular they would like to ask that we can discuss before we break?
One simple answer from everybody. I think my personal opinion is that non-stringers like them short, stringers like them long for adjustments. Sidewall lengths. How long do you tip your strings? How long do you leave them before you, or how short do you go? Either way, however you want to look at it.
Oftentimes,
JP,
yeah, when you're done stringing, when you tie it off. When you're done tying off, how long do you leave the end of the string there dangling?
For me, it depends how confident I am that I'm not going to have to readjust it. If it's for somebody new, sometimes I'll leave it as long as I can and just kind of tie the excess somewhere else that it's out of the way, but still there for me to access and use that extra length to edit it later. But if it's a replica of like my buddy's gamer that I know he's going to just stick with, leave it untouched, he's going to be happy with it. I'll cut it maybe if I got one. Never mind. Like 1.5 inches. I don't know. You can see that. That's not much longer than that. If I know I'm done with it, I'm just gonna keep it out of the way.
Same.
Pretty much 1.5 inches.
Typically, I find for myself once the top string's done, like I almost never go back and change top strings once I know I've got them done. So I'll cut those pretty short, and then when it comes to the sidewall, couple inches, whatever, just to make sure I've got enough that if it does need fine tuning, I can go back and do it comfortably.
Realistically, I should say, if I know I'm done with it, my number one goal is I hate having tips rattling on the plastic when you're cradling whatever varieties. So that's usually what I'm going for. I don't want.
Is that a you thing or an other guys in Michigan thing?
It might be a me thing. I remember I played in the pickup game a couple years ago, and this deep pole had 6 or 7 inches of string hanging off the stick. It slapped me in the helmet, and it whipped through my face mask and hit me in the eye. That's been a pet peeve for a while. I don't know. I don't like the clicking. If I hear I'm cradling around and it's rattling against my sidewalls, that's obnoxious to me. So I guess form for function. I don't think it
Not a
matters
fan of
too
Connor
much.
Field's 17, 18 knots out on his top 3 shooters just to let it hang out like that.
I'm not a fan of almost the entire setup he's got going, but that would drive me insane.
So my answer to this is similar to everybody else's. Sometimes, like in this case, there's maybe 1.5 inches left on this string, and I didn't. That's the actual aglet that String King made. That's how long it was. I would actually prefer it to be longer. I typically will tie 2 knots. I like going all the way around the plastic twice and then tying a double knot for the unlikely event that if you ever have to undo it and redo it, I want to have enough string that I can at least tie a single knot again. That hasn't happened in a long time, but I remember in college it happening more. I'll typically leave strings like 2 to 3 inches in length, purely for those instances, because there's too many times I've seen kids who will do this and then they'll cut it like, 1/2 inch from the knot. And I'm like, all right, you cut it, you didn't burn it, it's frayed all the way to the knot. If the knot comes undone, I can't retie it. And I don't have to, if it comes undone, I'm probably going to have to do something aggressive and creative in order to not completely replace that sidewall or that, what do you call it? That sidewall or that top string. Even more so for the bottoms. I don't know. Hopefully you can see this. I'm putting it, let's see if it's really down here. If you notice, can everyone see my screen well enough? So from here, like these are all weaved inside. From the bottom right about here, the string goes all the way down through the bottom holes and then back up. So I don't know if you can't really tell. I haven't cut off the bottom here, but I've done that for the same purpose on the bottom of the sidewall for the same concept as what I would do for the top string. I'm giving myself a whole bunch of extra string because I don't know if I'm ever going to have to. I'm probably not going to redo this stick. I'm going to send it out in the mail tomorrow. But if it's, especially if it's a kid that I coach, the proximity piece that we discussed, if I'm trying something new and saying, okay, here, try this, let me know how this works, especially if I'm doing anything to the inside, doing double inside takes significantly more string than you would in a typical sidewall. Most sidewalls, I will grab it in between my pinky and my thumb, I'll stretch all the way out, and I'll do it to just about my my armpit. And if I know I'm going to do double inside or weaved inside, I'll either go like to like the middle of my pec or all the way to my sternum. And just string is cheap, especially if I'm pulling from a spool or anything like that. I always want to, measure twice, cut once, and use way too much. And for someone, if I'm being creative on a double inside or a weaved inside or something like that, I'll use too much string and go down through the bottom string holes and back up through the lowest sidewall hole and then cut it 2 to 3 inches, because I just want to give myself extra room in case I have to change something. And it's, as any of us here, Skylar, you're stringing literally as we do this. There are few things in a stringer's life that are more just mind-blowingly frustrating than getting to the bottom. You have to undo an entire sidewall because you have barely not enough string to string the head. I don't string traditionals, but I can't imagine, only pulling 5.5 feet of cross lace rather than 6, and being 6 inches too short and literally having to do the entire thing over. I would metaphorically blow my brains out if I were to.
I'd forgotten about this, but this is one of my tricks that I'm not sure if I've seen anywhere else. Oftentimes, let's see if I get some shade on that. I kind of go like a boat cleat, a little figure 8 to store some extra string down in the bottom couple holes.
Maybe we see this. Is it better? Is that? Oh wow, you're going over and back and over and back and over.
Look at that.
Yeah, I kind of got the idea from tying boat hitches onto cleats, but it's not too hard. It's kind of a figure 8 motion, and you can save 2 to 3 extra inches of string down there in the bottom.
Great idea.
Nice.
That can be, you can just pull that right back out if you got to edit it.
Cool.
Yep.
Excellent. Hi, Travis. You came in late. Sorry, we've been chatting a whole bunch, but I just wanted to say thank you very much for coming in. And also, Skylar is on mute and he's paying attention to his stick. Braxton, Willem, and Ryder, thank you very much. Hopefully you are paying attention and you can hear us, though you are on mute yourselves.
Yeah, this was great.
I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. I'm gonna end this in a minute or two, but I will say I am recording. I'm gonna put this up on my YouTube, and I will send it out to everyone, even the people that didn't show up. I'll send it out to everybody that had at least signed up for today, so that they have access and they can go back and watch it. So thank you very much. I really appreciate everyone taking an hour out of their time during our socially distanced virtual future that we are now living in. Seriously, I mean this. If anyone has any questions about anything they would be interested in talking about in another one of these moving forward, I don't have a plan in place to do this on Mondays and Wednesday nights for the next foreseeable future. But I certainly want to try and do this once or twice a week, every week for the foreseeable future, just to get online and be able to create some content and answer questions of people that want questions answered. So if you have any questions,
Giveaway, Lars.
Shoot me an email. I'll be happy to respond.
All right, thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot, Lars. Thanks for putting this together. Thanks, guys.
Nice
Thanks,
talking,
guys.
everybody.
Appreciate it. Have a great night. Stay healthy.
See ya.
Two.
Drink a lot of water.
Yeah.
Wash your hands.
Hands.
All right, see you.
Later.
So